Machinitou, being the master of life, at one time became the origin of a spirit that has ever since caused him and all others of his creation a great deal of disquiet. His birth was owing to an accident. It was this way. Metowak, or as the white people now call it, Long Island, was originally a vast plain, so level and free from any kind of growth that it looked like a portion of the great sea that had suddenly been pushed back to let the sand appear below it, which was, in fact, the case. Here it was that Machinitou used to come and sit when he wished to bring any new creation to life. The place being spacious and solitary, the water upon every side, he had not only room enough, but he was free from interruption. It is well known that some of these creatures were of very great size, so very few could live in the same place, and their strength made it difficult even for Machinitou to control them. For when he has given them the use of these powers, they have the use of the laws that govern those powers, until it is his will to take them back to himself. Accordingly, it was the custom of Machinitou, when he wished to try the effect of these creatures, to set them in motion on the island of Metowak, and if they did not please him, he took the life away from them again. He would set up a mammoth or some other large animal in the center of the island and build it up with great care, sometimes in the manner that a cabin or a canoe is made. Even to this day there may be found traces of what had been done there in former years, and the manner in which the earth sometimes sinks down shows that this island is nothing more than a great cake of earth, a sort of platter laid upon the sea for the convenience of Machinitou, who used it as a table upon which he might work, never having designed it for anything else, the banks of the Hudson River being better adapted to the purposes of habitation. When the master of life wished to build up an elephant or a mammoth, he placed 4 cakes of clay upon the ground at proper distances, and they were then molded into shape and became the feet of the animal. Now sometimes these were left unfinished, and to this day the green tussocks to be seen about the little island and the marshes show where these cakes of clay were placed. As Machinitou went on with his work, the Nibonabegs, the water spirits, the Pukwudginis, or the little men who vanish, and indeed all of the lesser Manitous, used to come and look on and wonder what it would be and how it would act. When the animal was completed and had dried a long time in the sun, Machinitou opened a place in the side, and entering in, he would remain there many days. When he came forth, the creature began to shiver and sway from side to side in such a manner as to shake the whole island for leagues. If its appearance pleased the master of life, it was allowed to depart, and it was generally found that these animals plunged into the open sea upon the north side of the island, and disappeared into the great forest beyond. Now, at one time, Machinitou was a very long time building an animal of great bulk, and it looked like a mountain upon the center of the island, and all the Manitous from all parts came to see what it was. The Pukwudginis especially made themselves very merry, capering behind its great ears, sitting within its mouth, each perched on a tooth, running in and out of the sockets of the eyes, thinking Machinitou, who was finishing off other parts of the animals, would not see them. But he can see right through everything he makes. He was glad to see the Pukwudginis so lively, and he bethought him of many new creations while he watched their motions. When the master of life had completed this large animal, he was fearful to give it a life, and so it was left upon the island or the work table of Machinitou, till its great weight caused it to break through, and sinking partly down, it stuck fast, the head and tail holding it in such a manner so as to prevent it from slipping further down. Machinitou then lifted up a piece of the back, and he found it made a very good cavity into which the old creatures which failed to please him might be thrown. He sometimes amused himself by making creatures very small and active, with which he watched a while, and then finding them of very little use in the world, and not so attractive as the little vanishers, he would take out the life from them and take it into himself, and then cast them into the cave made in the body of the unfinished animal. In this way, great quantities of very odd shapes were heaped together in the ronconcommon, or the place of fragments. He was always careful before setting a thing he had created aside to take out its life. One day the Master of Life took 2 pieces of clay and molded them into 2 large feet, like those of a panther. He did not make 4, there were only 2. He put his own feet into them, and he found the tread to be very light and springy, so that he might go on with great speed and yet make no noise. Next he built up a very tall pair of legs, in the shape of his own, and he made them walk about a while. He was pleased with the motion. Then he followed with a round body covered with large scales, like those of an alligator. He now found that the figure was doubling forward, and he fastened a long black snake that was gliding by to the back part of the body and wound the other end round a sapling which grew near, and this held the body upright and made a very good tail. The shoulders were broad and strong like those of the buffalo, and covered with hair. The neck was thick and short and full at the back. Thus far Machinitou had worked with little thought, but when he came to the head, he thought a long while. He took a round ball of clay into his lap, and he worked it over with great care. While he thought, he patted the ball of clay upon the top, which made it very broad and low, for Machinitou was thinking of the panther feet and of the buffalo neck. He remembered the puckwood jennies playing in the eye sockets of the great unfinished animal, and he bethought himself to set the eyes out, like those of a lobster, so that the animal might see on every side. He made the forehead broad and full, but low, for here was to be the wisdom of the forked tongue, like that of a serpent, which should be in its mouth. It should see all things, and it should know all things. Here Machinitou stopped, for he thought he had never made such a creation before, one with 2 feet, a creature that should stand upright and see upon every side. The jaws were very strong, with ivory teeth, and gills upon either side, which rose and fell whenever breath passed through them. The nose was like the beak of the vulture. A tuft of porcupine quills made the locks of the scalp. Machinitou held the head out at the length of his arm, and he turned it first one side and then the other. He passed it rapidly through the air, and saw the gills rise and fall, the lobster eyes whirl around, and the vulture nose look keen. Machinitou became very tall. Yet he put the head upon the shoulders. It was the first time he had made an upright figure. It seemed to be the first idea of a man. It was now nearly night. The bats were flying through the air, and the roar of the wild beast began to be heard. A gusty wind swept in from the ocean and passed over the island of Metoac, casting the light sand to and fro. A wavy scud was skimming along the horizon, while higher up in the sky a dark thick cloud, upon the verge of which the moon hung for a moment and was then shut in. A panther came by and stayed for a moment with one foot raised and bent inwards, while it looked upon the image and smelt the feet that were so like its own. A vulture swooped down with the great noise of its wings and made a dash at the beak, but Machinitou held it back. Then came the porcupine, the lizard, and the snake, each drawn by its kind in the image. Machinitou veiled his face for many hours, and the gusty wind swept by, but he did not stir. He saw that every beast of the earth seeks its own kind, and that which is like draws its likeness to itself. The Master of Life thought and thought. The idea grew in his mind that at some time he should create a creature who should be made not after the things of the earth, but after himself. This being should link this world to the spirit world, being made in the likeness of the Great Spirit. He should be drawn into his own likeness. Many days and nights passed while Machinitou thought upon these things. He saw all things. Then the Master of Life lifted up his head. The stars were looking down upon the image, and a bat had alighted upon the forehead, spreading his great wings upon each side. Machinitou took the bat and held out its whole leathery wings, and ever since the bat, when he rests, lets his body hang down, so that he could then try them over the head of the image. He then took the life of the bat away, twisted off the body, by which means the whole thin parts fell down over the head of the image and upon each side, making the ears, and a covering for the forehead like that of a hooded serpent. Machinitou did not cut off the face of the image below, but went on and made a chin and lips that were firm and round, that they might shut in the forked tongue and ivory teeth. And he knew that with the lips the image would smile when life should be given to it. The image was now complete, except the arms, and Machinitou saw it was necessary that it should have hands. He grew more grave. He had never given hands to any creature. He made the arms and the hands very beautiful, after the manner of his own. Machinitou now took no pleasure in the work that he had done. It was not good in his sight. He wished he had not given it hands. Might it not, when trusted with life, create? Might it not thwart the plans of the Master of Life himself? He looked long at the image. He saw what it would do when life should be given it. He knew all things. He now put fire in the image, but fire is not life. He put fire within, and a red glow passed through and through it. The fire dried the clay of what the image was made, and gave the image an exceedingly fierce aspect. It shone through the scales upon the breast, through the gills and the bat-winged ears. The lobster eyes were like living coals. Machinitou opened the side of the image, but he did not enter. He had given it hands and a chin. It could smile like the Manitous themselves. He made it walk all about the island of Meadowak, that he might see how it would act. This he did by means of his will. He now put a little life into it, but he did not take out the fire. Machinitou saw the aspect of the creature. He thought it would be very terrible, and yet that it could smile in such a manner that it ceased to be ugly. He thought much upon these things. He felt that it would not be best to let such a creature live. A creature made up mostly from the beasts of the field, but with hands of power, a chin lifting the head upward, and lips holding all things within themselves. While he thought of these things, he took the image in his hands, and he cast it into the cave. But Machinitou forgot to take out the life. The creature lay a long time in the cave and did not stir, for its fall was very great. It lay amongst the old creations that had been thrown there without life. Now when a long time had passed, Machinitou heard a great noise in the cave. He looked in and he saw the image sitting there. It was trying to put together the old broken things that had been cast aside as of no value. Machinitou gathered together a vast heap of stones and sand, for large rocks are not to be found upon that island, and he stopped up the mouth of the cave. Many days passed, and the noise within the cave grew louder. The earth shook, and hot smoke came from the ground. The Manitous crowded to Machinitou to see what was the matter. Machinitou came also, for he remembered the image he had cast in there, of which he had forgotten to take away the life. Suddenly there was a great rising of the stones and sand. The sky grew black with wind and dust. Fire played about on the ground. Water gushed high into the air. All the Manitous fled with fear, and the image came forth with a great noise and a most terrible aspect. Its life had grown strong within it, for the fire had made it powerful and fierce. Everything fled before it and cried, "Machinitou, Machinitou," which means a god, but an evil god.